We are back. You are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. Nick, they tried to take me out. Wasn't feeling too well last week. The snow got to us 2 weeks ago, but we are back, and there's a lot to talk about in the sports world. How are we doing today, Nick?
Sebastian, I'm doing great today, can't complain, but most importantly, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling much better, feeling great. I had an itch to come in here today into the School of Communication and Media on the campus of Montclair State University and get started with this show. I'm very excited. But Nick, today is a very special day. Do you know what day it is today?
I do, but first, before we get into it, drum roll please. It's the first day of spring training in Major League Baseball.
Yes, it is. So, Nick, I think it's only right if we start off with Major League Baseball. What do you think?
I think it is the perfect way to start it off, as today kicks off spring training for Major League Baseball. We have the Los Angeles Dodgers, our 2024 World Series champions. Sorry for Yankee fans who are listening, but it is true. Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Chicago Cubs. And people have been waiting for this for a while, as we were in football season for a little bit, but baseball season is back underway, and it starts today, 3:05 p.m. And as far as we know, we don't know who will be in the lineup, but of course there are major names like Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman, but we'll see if the Dodgers will take a risk at putting them in on the very first day.
No doubt, and I think it's only right, first of all, that we start off with Major League Baseball, and we talk about a very controversial topic that has been highlighted in Major League Baseball, and that is the use of robot umpires. And this is something that has been displayed in the minor leagues, AA and AAA. But baseball commissioner, MLB commissioner Rob Manfred, has stated that he is very open to adding this permanently in 2026, which is next year. And for those who don't know, it works. It's, I believe, batters, pitchers, and catchers can call it. So, for example, if a pitch is outside, but the umpire calls it a strike, the batter taps on his helmet, and that signals to someone in the booth, I want to challenge this. I thought that was outside. So it's very quick. It's computerized. So it's a very interesting, neat little idea to the MLB. But Nick, what's your take on all of this?
I mean, if they decide to pursue in this, it's definitely going to be strange, because we've been so used to seeing umpires for however many years, over a century it's been. So it's definitely going to be weird seeing robot umpires if they go through with this. But, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I mean, obviously a lot of people out there know that there have been, in recent years especially, many controversial calls by umpires. So I guess Rob Manfred is trying to go in a different route, try something new, and see how that works out. But of course, you also got to be careful, because just as I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this. There are certain times, of course, where umpires, as we know, call controversial calls, but so can the robot umpires. They could do the same possible thing. I mean, there's a good chance it'll be more on point as far as like a strike or a ball, but you never know if they'll malfunction or anything. I mean, what do you think about that?
Here's my take on it. I think that players and managers getting thrown out is part of baseball. Who doesn't love to see Aaron Boone go up to Laz Diaz on home plate and rant towards him? But here's my take. It also can't be a situation in the playoffs where the umpire is determining a game. And we see a lot of that in the NFL. But the great thing about baseball is that it's not as so complex in terms of, it's very straightforward. Strike, ball, out, or safe for the simple things. So my take is, during the regular season, you have human umpires. 162 regular game season, an umpire is not going to be the reason that you miss the playoffs. Unless it comes down to the final game of the season and that's a bad call that you didn't get into a wild card spot. You know what? You should have played better that last month during the season. However, playoff time comes around. Wild card is a best of 3. American League and Division Championship Series, best of 5 to a best of 7. I think that robot umpire should be utilized. These teams work very, very well and diligently. You start off in February. Imagine going November 1st, Game 7 of the World Series, and you lose because of a bad umpire. It can happen.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Umpires take the bat out of players' hands. And these players are professionals for a reason. They know the strike zone. So my whole take is you have human umpires in the regular season. We love seeing Aaron Boone get thrown out. It's my favorite part of Yankee games. And then for the playoffs, you go to that robot umpire atmosphere so you know that everything's going to work well.
Right.
Nothing is controversial, and the best team will win 10 out of 10 times.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Sebastian.
So that's my take on that. Wanted to get that out of the way because that is a very, very controversial topic. And that brings me to another controversial topic back to back. Nick, the Yankees' facial hair policy. I'll let you take this one away.
Well, obviously, as we know, this has been a rule in the Yankees books for the past almost 50 years now at this point. This all started back in 1973 when the New York Yankees hired George Steinbrenner as their new owner at the time. And one of the first things that he put out there was the no facial hair rule and no long hair rule. So ever since then, still to this day, players who are on the Yankees roster, they cannot have a beard. If they want to have facial hair, they can have a clean mustache, no like scruffy look on the face or anything, and they have to, and their hair has to be as long as, I believe it was shoulder length, and nothing else longer than that, or just clean cut short hair. And to tell you the truth, I honestly like this. I always loved this because that's what makes the Yankees stand out more than any other team. I mean, nobody else has this kind of rule. Think about that. The Yankees are the only team, as a matter of fact, not in baseball, but I think in any professional sports, I think they're the only team that specifically has a rule where you cannot have a beard or long hair. And I think that's a pretty good rule to have, honestly, because I mean, you're playing for the Yankees. This is not a team like the Colorado Rockies or the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is the New York Yankees. They've had history going back to the 1920s, so I think that it is only right to look as professional as possible when playing for a ball club like the New York Yankees.
I agree. I've always loved the clean-cut look. It makes you unified as a team, and people forget George Steinbrenner was in the Air Force, so this is a guy that's been around that. He wants that clean-cut look. With that being said, I do like the rule. I do agree. However, I would not be opposed not to changing it entirely because we've seen some players, they have these overgrown beards. I think Charlie Blackmon from the Rockies previously, I think he's the only one that could rock it well. But again, I would not mind if the rule was altered slightly to a well-groomed beard. Because, Nick, we were talking about it before we came into the studio. Former Yankee second baseman Rougned Odor without a beard, man, he did. Some people just need that facial hair. And Devin Williams, he doesn't look awful. No offense to Devin, but I mean, he looks great with that beard. So, I don't know how you want to put it. I can see how George Steinbrenner passed away in 2009.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, so they've had that rule since. I don't know if they're going to alter it. I wouldn't be opposed entirely. I understand the rule. I like the rule personally.
Yeah.
It's unified. You look good. Play good. I like it. If Aaron Judge, a captain, brings it up, maybe there would be more push to change it because whatever Judge probably says goes. He was the one that pushed Yankees general manager Brian Cashman to go out there and get Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt. So we'll see about that. I don't know. I like the rule for now. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But staying on the topic of the Yankees, it hits them again, the injury bug. Nick, it's not even regular season and people are getting hurt. What do you think about all this?
Well, for those of you who did not know, Well, now you know, and it's probably not a surprise to most of you, but spring training, as we mentioned, it starts up today. Hasn't even started yet, and guess who's on the injured list already? Mr. Giancarlo Stanton. Oh my God. He's already hurt, and not only that, he is most likely not going to be playing at all in spring training, but he's also questioning of whether or not he'll be able to return by opening day due to tendonitis in both elbows. I mean, this has been a story of Giancarlo Stanton being hurt all the time, but there's no doubt about it, he's one of the Yankees' best and by far their strongest hitter, especially when it comes to playoff time when they need him the most. But you just hope to God that this doesn't affect him too bad going into regular season, because he's up there in age. He's, 35, 36? He's up there in age, and that's where you have to be careful, especially with a big guy like Giancarlo Stanton.
100%, and the part that hurts the most is that when Stanton is healthy, he doesn't need to be a guy that has to run the bases or play the outfield. He hits home runs. He bats 4th or 5th for a reason, because he dropped last year in the playoffs. Judge was struggling, but you know who came up clutch? Giancarlo Stanton. He played very well in the playoffs, but it just hurts when he can't have that impact in the regular season. But in the back of Yankee fans' minds, we're already looking forward to the playoffs because we know the team has the possibility to get there. Again, you never want to jump ahead or jump to conclusions, but if Stanton can stay healthy, we know he's a force in the playoffs. It just hurts because when you lose Soto and you're trying to visualize the Yankees starting lineup on opening day versus the Brewers, let's say it's Jason Dominguez or Jazz Chisholm leading off. You go Bellinger, Judge, Aaron Boone is still deciding. Either way, if you go Bellinger 2, Judge 3, who fills that 4 hole? Now you're putting a lot of pressure on a guy per se, Paul Goldschmidt, to step into that 4 hole, who had the worst season of his career last year in 2024, career low in average home runs. I think that there is a little bit less pressure because he's not the guy. You have bigger time players. Anthony Volpe in his 3rd year upcoming. He can be a guy that can spread the lineup towards the bottom half. But again, I don't know. Can Paul Goldschmidt do that and provide that void?
Yeah.
And then you go right down the lineup. Chisholm, Volpe. Nick, do you think Goldschmidt can fill that void, or what do the Yankees have to do here?
I mean, for Paul Goldschmidt, we definitely have to wait and see, because, as you mentioned, last year was his worst season of his career, and he's another one that you have to be careful for, because he's also up there in age. The guy is 37 years old, and he's definitely, of course, he's had a phenomenal career. I mean, we're talking about a 7-time All-Star. 3 years ago, he was a National League MVP when he was already in his mid-30s, which is phenomenal. He's a 4-time Gold Glove winner, 5-time Silver Slugger winner, 2-time National League Hank Aaron Award winner, home run leader, and RBI leader. So this guy has put up incredible numbers his whole career. But again, there comes a time when every player's tenure comes to an end, their time comes to an end, and you just have to hope to God that Paul Goldschmidt can fill that role. I mean, I don't know if they are doing this to just fill in the position temporarily, and then they're going to try and go after another first baseman. Maybe that's why they did it, to just see how Paul Goldschmidt would fit in the system, and then if it doesn't work out, maybe try to go after a first baseman, whether it's during the trade deadline in August or after like a 1-year contract next year, go after a younger first baseman, and one that's actually available. If you didn't see it, Sebastian, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. actually did not sign an extension contract with the Toronto Blue Jays, so there's a good chance that a guy like him could be available next year for the Yankees at first base.
100%. I would love to see Vladdy in pinstripes. But the thing is, Vladimir Guerrero, I don't know if he's changed his mind, but he actually said he would never play for the Yankees. But then he changed his mind here and there. I think that money talks. We've seen that with Soto when you sign the largest.
Oh, no.
I mean, when you sign the largest professional sports contract in North American sports history, $765 million for 15 years. Money talks. If the money's thrown at Vladdy, he's going to sign. So we'll see what happens with the Yankees. We all hope that Stanton gets healthy. When he plays very well, and he's a force in that lineup. But with that being said, we are going to shift over, not too far. We're going to take the A train down to Queens and talk about a guy who has been, I don't know how to describe this, very interesting. Let's call him interesting. Clay Holmes. Mr. Clay Holmes, the former closer and reliever for the New York Yankees, who, when the highs are high, they are high. When the lows are low, they are very low. We're talking about a guy with a sinker that moves unbelievably on a horizontal and vertical plane that is upwards of 100 miles an hour. And when you pair that with a lethal cutter/slider in the upper 80s, Nick, no one's hitting that pitch. But here's the issue. Clay Holmes has had a very difficult time throwing strikes. In fact, last season he had 13 blown saves during the regular season, which is the most blown saves by a Yankee pitcher since 1987. Now here's the thing. The blown saves aren't going to happen for the Mets because why? He is going to be a starting pitcher. I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, I guess I wish him well. He got his money. He got what he wanted. Going into this, I mean, he knew that he was going to be a starter for the Mets. Nick, how do you feel about Clay Holmes? Can he transition from being a guy that couldn't throw strikes and getting kicked out of his role as Yankees closer to a potential lethal starter for the Mets?
I mean, again, anything is possible, I guess, if you want to say that. But Clay Holmes, even going back to his time when he was with the Pittsburgh Pirates, he was never a starting pitcher in his career. He was always a relief pitcher. Then he came to the Yankees, was a relief pitcher for a while, then went down, then became the closer, which seemed to be going pretty well. But then this year, especially in the second half of the season and the playoffs, things just did not go the way he had hoped or Yankees fans had hoped. So him as a starting pitcher, I don't really see it going that well. There is one thing for sure, though, as you mentioned, he relies heavily on that sinker, which has been effective for most of his career. And, of course, he also throws the slider. He's got a nasty sweeper, and he throws the four-seamer as well. But, of course, his sinker has been his big blowout out of any of his pitches. But as far as his role transitioning over to a starting pitcher with the New York Mets, I don't see it going the way people hope it would go.
Neither do I. I mean, you have a guy who's had his ups and downs, and if he can stay more towards the uptrend, he'd be very good as a Mets starter. And when you're a starter, you have to have that consistency, though. You're a guy that's pitching once every 5 days, so you need to be on point because you know what's going to happen or could happen if Clay Holmes isn't throwing strikes in the first inning. Carlos Mendoza isn't going to hesitate to take him out. And you have a rotation led by Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga. Is Clay Holmes going to be that third starter? I mean, you have David Peterson in there. If he's your third starter, this is a guy that you are going to have to count on in the playoffs to get outs, and we all know someone is going to have to take down the Dodgers. They aren't going anywhere. They have so many players, Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They have the pitching, they have the lineup. So it's a matter of how do they compete and do things that will make them successful. So we'll see with Clay Holmes. He is going to be a very interesting character, to say the least. But nonetheless, we are going to go not back to the Yankees, but in the American League East with Nick. I know me and you cannot stand this team more than anyone. The Boston Red Sox. But unfortunately, I can't be biased on this show. They are looking really, really good. They went out there and made a great acquisition in getting third baseman Alex Bregman on a 3-year deal. However, there is some controversy as Rafael Devers has been the starting third baseman for the Red Sox for the past few years and is a little bit upset because manager for the Red Sox, Alex Cora, has stated that there's no guarantee that Devers is going to stay at third. And when a reporter asked him about it, he said one word: no, Didn't even need a translator. This is a guy who doesn't speak English very well, so he needs a translator during his press conferences, and he understood the reporter. No, he doesn't want to play DH. He doesn't want to play second base. But we're talking about a guy, the stats don't back up how poorly he's been defensively. No doubt he's a great hitter. He owns Garrett Cole. Every time I turn on a Yankee Red Sox game, he's taking Cole deep towards right center field. But this is a guy who's the only third baseman in Major League Baseball history to lead his position, third base, in errors for 7 straight years, 2018 to 2024. Nick, what do the Red Sox do here? They have a little bit of a third base situation.
They definitely do, and there's no doubt at all that Rafael Devers has been a Yankee destroyer ever since he came into the league. And as you mentioned, in particular, Garrett Cole, there's always at least one game where he takes him deep. And his defense is incredible. I mean, there's plays that he makes where even I'm like, did he really just do that? I think he even stopped like a laser from Giancarlo Stanton. And that thing's coming at you like 110 miles an hour. So it amazes me that these guys can see the ball that fast. But for this whole thing with that deal that they signed Alex Bregman for 3 years, it's going to be interesting. Although I think Alex Bregman said, I'll do anything to fit in the team system, whether that is playing third base or not. So obviously Alex Bregman is willing to play for the Boston Red Sox, even if he doesn't play his natural third base position. But as you mentioned, Devers was not too crazy about it. So as far as that, I guess we'll have to wait and see how the Red Sox are going to determine who's going to be their steady third baseman. I guess we'll find that out in spring training.
Absolutely. And the last thing you want going into spring training is to start fights. I mean, Alex Bregman, he's being a leader here. He's standing up and saying, I'll do whatever it is to help the team. Trevor Story is currently projected to be the starting shortstop. Cedane Rafaela has been a guy that can play the outfield and the infield as well. So he's kind of the projected second baseman. I mean, I'm sure that Cora can have the option to move him into the outfield and then have Bregman go to second and then DH, have a plethora of players DH, and then you have Tristan Casas at first base. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. I do think the American League East is going to be very competitive this year.
Yes.
The Rays are always good. They always have pitching. Kevin Cash has some sort of magic spell that he puts on his players when they enter spring training. They're always in the upper 90s throwing well. The Orioles took a little bit of a step back with pitching. They don't have too much there for starters. But when you have Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and upcoming Jackson Holliday, who has been lethal, not at the major league level, but this is a former first overall pick that has shown that he can play well, and he's going to get it going. We know that at second base. So we're going to see what's going to happen. It's going to be very interesting in the American League East and the Boston Red Sox. But on the fun side of things, Nick, if I'm not watching baseball or football, you know what I'm doing? Can you take a guess what I'm doing?
What are you going to be doing, Sebastian?
I will be in my basement on my gaming chair playing MLB The Show. And the reason I bring up MLB The Show is because a new game comes out every year, and this year it is going to be MLB The Show 25. And there's a very interesting twist to this game, as college baseball will be added into the game with 8 college teams, which includes Vanderbilt. So that's going to be cool. Nick, I love playing Road to the Show. I mean, there's a few instances where I've gotten very frustrated and slammed my controller down because Randy Johnson is pitching in Diamond Dynasty and I can't hit his fastball. Nick, I know this is a little cool, fun take. How do you feel about this adding into the show?
I think this is awesome, Sebastian. I mean, I also have been a huge fan of MLB The Show since I was younger, and I think this is going to be a really cool feature now that you can play from your senior year of high school going into college and trying to make your way into the major leagues in MLB The Show 2025. It's fantastic. I mean, I remember when I was younger and I would pretend that I was I was announcing the games as if I was Michael Kay or somebody, and obviously that's where I got the idea of how I wanted to do like sports broadcasting, of course. So I got to thank MLB The Show for that, of course. But this is going to be really fun. I cannot wait to get MLB The Show 2025.
I'm very excited. I think I'm going to be on the PlayStation store using the gift cards that Santa got me from Christmas and downloading that game because I'm very excited. But before we go to a quick break, we're going to touch up on one topic that Nick and I touched on 2 weeks ago, I believe, and it's salary cap. But not just salary cap, we're going to focus on some teams. Nick, we have the Pirates, Athletics. I'll give the Athletics credit. They went out there and made a deal for Luis Severino, who has pitched with the Yankees and the Mets, and hopeful that he's going to be the guy for the Athletics. I don't know, Nick. Can small market teams like the Pirates, who have a stud in Paul Skeens that is throwing 100 miles an hour in the 8th inning with 120 pitches, how do they compete with the Dodgers? Is it lost hope? Or how do the Rocky fans and the Pirates fans have belief in their teams? Maybe not take down the Dodgers, but make the playoffs again. We haven't seen it.
Well, there is always a chance for anybody in this game to make the playoffs, as long as you make the right moves and you have the right team put together. But as far as taking down the Dodgers, especially to go to the World Series in the National League, I just don't see it happening. Obviously, last year, we saw a very competitive National League Championship Series with the Dodgers and Mets. The Dodgers did beat up the Mets in the games that they won, but the Mets were competitive with the Dodgers. So a team like them, are they for real, or was it just it just happened to be a terrific season for the Mets? We'll have to see. Can they repeat what they did last year? As you mentioned, now they have Juan Soto, who they signed for that massive contract. So is this guy going to help the Mets get to the World Series like he helped the Yankees get to the World Series? It's going to be very tough because the Dodgers won the World Series last year and had injuries, had players who were injured, and they were major players and pitchers. And now they're coming back on full strength and added additional players too. So I just don't see anybody beating the Dodgers next year.
It hurts me because when people project, let's take the National League West that have the Dodgers in it. Nobody gives the Rockies a chance. Nick, I can't blame them. I really can't. They don't make moves. I'm not saying you have to be the Dodgers and spend millions and billions of dollars, but you have to get someone. It can't always be relying on young talent because, Nick, it doesn't work. It's not going to take you all the way. The Dodgers know that, and I get that some general managers and owners have more luxury than others, but take a team like the Pirates. They have such a beautiful ballpark in PNC Park right across the river from our favorite place, Acrisure Stadium, where the Pittsburgh Steelers play. But looking at this lineup, there's tons of unproven players, and that's okay. Every team is going to have unproven players in their lineup that have the potential to make noise. But looking at their projected lineup, Tommy Pham, he's getting up there, and this is a very old lineup. Tommy Pham is 37. Andrew McCutchen, the journeyman, I always loved Andrew McCutchen. He's 38 years old. Can he be the guy to provide pop for this Pirates team? I'm not too sure. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, the utility man for the Yankees. I was always a fan of IKF. Again, tons of guys that need to make noise for themselves. Joey Bart is an up-and-coming catcher. We'll see what they can do. I'm very interested in not just the Pittsburgh Pirates, but these younger teams in general. I want to see them perform well. Of course, I love seeing our big market teams play well. Yankees, of course, we're Yankee fans here. The Mets, Steve Cohen, he has shown that he's not going to stop spending. You make that contract for Soto, and the Dodgers. So I'd love to see the Pirates or the Rockies, Athletics, somebody sneak in there and make some noise because it's very interesting to watch. But Nick, before we go to a quick break, any last thoughts on this situation?
Well, as far as the Yankees, I'm very curious to see what they're going to do going into the postseason. Spring training, and see how they do just going forward, as opening day is almost here. So keep your calendars open, everybody, because baseball is underway.
Baseball is underway. Very excited, and we will be talking about the best highlights news next week. But don't go away just yet. We are going to go to a quick break, and when we get back, we will be talking some National League football and some free agent quarterbacks and where do they fit, how do they make a name for themselves in a quarterback-driven league. But you are listening to the Sports Corner on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. Don't go away just yet. We will be right back. We are back here on the Sports Corner. You are listening to everyone's favorite baseball and football talk show live on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. Nick, we are back. They can't throw us out just yet. We have more to talk about.
Nope.
So we are going to get to some football talk. And just because the Super Bowl has ended, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. You are the 2024 NFL Super Bowl champions. Congratulations. Howie Roseman, general manager, built this team up so well. So many key pieces contributed. So many young players helped out. Cooper DeJean, perfect example, out of Iowa. Pick 6 in the Super Bowl.
On his birthday.
Saquon Barkley as well. So that's great, but we are going to get to free agents, specifically the top free agent quarterbacks in the NFL. And we are going to start off with another interesting player. We talked about how Clay Holmes was interesting on the baseball side. Aaron Rodgers, who had a very perplexed season, Nick, to say the least. I mean, right now he's 41 years old. He didn't play well at the beginning of the season. The Jets did not make the playoffs. And that was his job when he got there. He came with the Jets. His first year, he tore his Achilles in the first game, so that's very unfortunate. But he didn't provide a spark with the Jets that they needed. And they had the pieces. Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall at running back. 41 years old. He had a 90 or above passer rating in 4 of the final 5 starts for the Jets. He's a veteran option who has said for his new team, if he does not retire, he's willing to take a rookie under his wing. Nick, how are we feeling about Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, no doubt about it, Aaron Rodgers had a phenomenal career. He came into the league in 2005 with the Green Bay Packers and was with them until 2022. But I think it's time for him to retire. I mean, the guy is, again, he's 41 years old. I mean, he doesn't really have much more to prove. He won a Super Bowl, unfortunately, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he did get himself a ring. He was the MVP of that Super Bowl. He was a 4-time NFL MVP, and a 10-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time NFL passer rating leader, a 2-time NFL passing touchdowns leader, an NFL completion percentage leader. I mean, what more? And not to mention, he has 4 NFL records. One for a career passer rating at a minimum of 1,500 attempts, a 102.6 passer rating. His second is career touchdown interception ratio in a minimum of 1,500 attempts, 4.3 to 1. Then his third one, single season passer rating in 2011, 122.5. And also in 2018, let's not forget, he also had the lowest interception percentage in a season at just 0.3%. So 4 NFL records, a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP, and numerous other accomplishments, as I mentioned right there. So the guy has nothing really more to prove. I think he had a phenomenal career, and as we said, he's 41 years old. So I think it's time for Aaron Rodgers to retire.
Unquestionably, Nick, to sum up what you just said, all those stats, the man has nothing left to prove. He's a Hall of Famer. However, I thought that he played well enough towards the end of the season, and Brett Favre, we all know Brett Favre, he's the one that said, he looks like Aaron Rodgers has a little bit of life in him. Call me crazy, but my fit for Aaron Rodgers, I think that as an athlete, he's not ending like this. He's not ending with the Jets in a way where he's remembered for a season where, just 4-13?
5-12.
5-12.
Yep.
5-12, you don't make the playoffs. He's not ending like that. Rodgers is competitive. I mean, we've seen all his stories on the Pat McAfee show. He's a character for sure. But at the end of the day, he is an athlete and a very competitive one. And I think he still has some juice left. And I believe the best fit for Aaron Rodgers, if this team does not re-sign Justin Fields, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here is why.
Wow.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe that. Now, this is for a few things, though. You can't just sign Rodgers and call it a day to be your next Big Ben. He's 41 years old. 1 year, probable. 2 years, maybe. We're assuming this is 1 year. The Steelers are in a position in the AFC North where you're going against Lamar Jackson, the two-time MVP, and Joe Burrow, who has proved he can play well in the playoffs. He's been to a Super Bowl. They lost on the last play of the game to the Rams 3 years ago, 23-20. So my whole point is the Steelers need a guy who's going to put them over the top. And if it were me, I would be perfectly fine if the Steelers went 3-14. If that meant they would pick at the top of the draft, they wouldn't be mediocre anymore, and they would have the opportunity to select their franchise quarterback in a 2026 class that is very stacked. We all know Mike Tomlin's not like that. There's a reason he's had 17 consecutive non-losing seasons in the NFL. So we're going under the assumption that the Steelers are going to go 9-8. Now, the Steelers are a team. They have an up-and-coming O-line. They're going to let Dan Moore walk in free agency, which by my assumption means that Broderick Jones is going to move over to left tackle, Mason McCormick at left guard, Zach Frazier, who played very well as a center, all-pro, in fact. Right guard can be probably Isaac Seumalo if he resigns. I'm assuming he will. Mike Tomlin has talked highly of him. And then Troy Fautanu. Everybody forgets about him, but he was the Steelers' former first-round pick this past draft. And talking about the weapons, George Pickens, Calvin Austin, Najee Harris / Jalen Warren. If you have the O-line and you take a shot on a quarterback, per se, Will Howard, Riley Leonard, or Jackson Dart in the second or third round, I'm all for having Aaron Rodgers for one last run with Mike Tomlin. If the O-line is up to date, if the Steelers go out there and get a rookie behind him to learn, because he's not a long-term option. But I do believe Aaron Rodgers can make the Steelers good. I know it's a little bit of a hot take. Nick, you can call me crazy.
Well, as you mentioned, there's no doubt about it that at the end of the season, if we don't remember, he did actually have a little bit of juice left in the tank. Because for those who don't remember, the final game of the season for the Jets this season, they played the Miami Dolphins at MetLife, and the Jets won 32-20. Aaron Rodgers, who went 23 for 36, had 274 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns, as well as 1 interception, but we're going to look at it as that he threw 4 touchdowns. And obviously, for a quarterback, that's a pretty good game, especially the age that Aaron Rodgers is at right now. That's a pretty impressive last game with the New York Jets, because it's been confirmed already that the Jets are moving on from Aaron Rodgers. And now people are wondering, is he going to retire? Is he going to go to another team? As Sebastian mentioned, him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously I think that would be pretty cool to have somebody like him on the Steelers, but you just have to see how he would turn out. Like, how would he play with the Steelers? Number one, if they were going towards trying to get Rodgers, I think that they definitely need to improve that offensive line, because Aaron Rodgers already tore his Achilles 2 years ago when he was with the New York Jets, so you definitely got to be careful. He's older now, and he's got to have some receivers to throw to. And if they can manage to do that, and Rodgers still is able to perform, maybe not like he did when he was 23, but if he can perform still where he can make nice little passes, and make plays happen, then who knows, Sebastian? Maybe there is a good chance that it will work out if the Steelers sign Rodgers to a 1-year deal.
We will see. And I remember moments when the Steelers actually played the Packers when Rodgers was with the team at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. And there were moments where CBS camera would pan to Mike Tomlin giving Rodgers a little wink on the sideline,
Yep.
probably in his head saying, why don't you come over to Pittsburgh after Big Ben retires? So we'll see. It's a very interesting offseason for the Steelers in general. But I want to jump to another man who has been a journeyman, Sam Darnold. What a resurgence for this man. Career highs in every statistical category, which includes yards, touchdowns, and passer rating. And, Nick, we all talk about how important coaching is. I'm not discrediting what Sam Darnold did. I thought he played very well, but a lot of credit has to go to Coach of the Year for the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell.
Yep.
He took a man in Sam Darnold, who many were calling, rightfully so, a bust. A former first-round pick with the Jets who just could not find his groove. Confidence was at an all-time low. And now you go to a Minnesota team that was expected to be ran over by teams by the Lions. Nonetheless, Nick, they fought. They fought. It in terms of first place in the NFC North, it came down to the final regular season game versus the Lions, where Sam Darnold didn't necessarily play well, and he didn't play too well in the playoffs versus the Rams. He showed some juice, and again, every quarterback needs weapons around them. He did have Justin Jefferson, All-Pro, Jordan Addison, stud upcoming receiver, TJ Hawkinson, up-and-coming tight end who was playing off an injury, and Aaron Jones. So Sam Darnold, he would be a perfect option just to re-sign with the Vikings. Let's run it back. You went 14-3. There was a little bit of vengeance. You lost the NFC North to the Lions, who lost both of their coordinators in Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. But here's the thing with the Vikings. They drafted a man by the name of J.J. McCarthy in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft out of the University of Michigan. You take a guy in the first round, you trade up for him, to be exact. You trade up for him. So this means that Kevin O'Connell wanted this guy in his system. And he would be cheaper as well. He would be playing on a rookie contract. Sam Darnold wants somewhere between $12 to $15 million on a 1-year deal. I don't know if that's the fit. Nick, if Sam doesn't re-sign with the Vikings, where does he go? Because he proved he can be one of the 32 starting quarterbacks.
Well, obviously, as you just mentioned there, Sebastian, I don't think anybody expected the Minnesota Vikings to finish the way that they did, especially under Sam Darnold, who did struggle with the Jets, didn't really hear much about him with the Panthers, didn't really hear much of anything with him on the 49ers. Then he comes to the Minnesota Vikings, and they were going to originally, I think, have him as the backup for J.J. McCarthy, who was a rookie quarterback coming out of college, and he tore his meniscus. So, obviously, that was an injury that was season-ending for him, so putting Sam Darnold was like their next big decision to make was, let's take a gamble and see what happens. And they finished, I believe they finished like 13-4 in the regular season, which is incredible. I don't think anybody expected that. Granted, they did fall short in the playoffs to the Los Angeles Rams in the first round of the playoffs, but in the regular season, a phenomenal job by Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings offense, and great job to Kevin
O'Connell.
Kevin O'Connell. Name popped out of my head. Sorry about that, O'Connell, if you happen to be listening all the way in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell, you are this year's NFL Coach of the Year, so congratulations to that, and congrats to the Minnesota Vikings on a phenomenal year. As far as where Sam Darnold is going to go, it's going to be interesting. As we mentioned before about Aaron Rodgers going to the Steelers, I mean, who knows? I mean, my question for you is, do you think, Sebastian, that Sam Darnold could be a fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
100%. I think he could absolutely be a fit. But here's the question again. Does Sam Darnold take you over the top like a Joe Burrow and a Lamar Jackson? Does he put you over the hump to potentially win the AFC North and compete for a Super Bowl? A lot of questions to be asked. And Nick, I'm glad you brought up a potential fit for the Steelers, because before we sign off here on the Sports Corner, I want to talk about one more option who I believe is the best fit for the Steelers besides Aaron Rodgers, and that is Justin Fields. Very interesting season, very exciting player. I love watching him scramble out of the pocket and make throws on the run. He was 4-2 as a starter for Pittsburgh before being benched for Russell Wilson. Let me say that again. 4-2 as a starter. Over 500 record, he gets benched. And I am going to come out and say I agreed with the decision at first. I liked having, because you signed Russell Wilson to a deal. This is a guy who's a former Super Bowl champion. He's not the same player he was, 36 years old. But I agreed giving him an opportunity. And looking back at it now, I don't agree with it. And I know I can question myself. Mike Tomlin can question his decision. But you had a guy in Fields, 25 years old, mobile quarterback, under an Arthur Smith offense that is deprived on RPOs, run-pass plays. Calvin Austin, 5'9", ran a 4.3 40-yard dash. You have the weapons, and mobility is a key aspect in the NFL. If we're looking at all the quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls, Patrick Mahomes, I'm not saying he's a rusher such as a Lamar Jackson, but he can move out of the pocket when necessary. Can Rodgers do that? No, he can't, which is why those are two things that need to happen if Rodgers is going to be a quarterback. So we'll see. I'm a big fan of Fields. What do you think, Nick?
I mean, no doubt about it that as a starter in the first 6 games of the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Justin Fields did a pretty good job. And as we mentioned, he made some nice plays, and he's fast. He can move out of the pocket when nobody's open. He knows how to run. Obviously, though, now, after that 6-game experience as a starter, on top of that, now he was able to get experience from Russell Wilson, who was the Pittsburgh Steelers starter the remainder of the season and into the playoffs. And now Justin Fields has that, he was being mentored during that season by Russell Wilson. So now you have to see what he can do in a regular season situation. Can he do it? I think he can. We just have to wait and see.
Definitely. I'm a big fan of Fields because he hasn't hit his ceiling yet in terms of how he can pass. We've seen his ability to go out there and make big plays, make big throws. I remember specifically Week 3 versus the Chargers. This man threw an absolute dime in between 2 defenders to Calvin Austin, the man I keep bringing up. Touchdown. That was that signature moment in my head where I thought to myself, Fields is going to be the guy. A lot to look forward to, but that is going to be all on the Sports Corner with some Major League Baseball and National Football League talk. We will get to more of that next week. Don't go anywhere. Next week, we will be back on the Sports Corner. I am your host, Sebastian Stratton. Joined alongside me, my always amazing co-host, Mr. Nick Suppa, on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, and we will see you next time. Have a great Thursday and a great rest of your day.